Don't look at the baby. The night I agreed to babysit for the Reynolds family, I had no idea it would be my last night in that house, or this town. They lived in an old Victorian on the edge of a dense forest. It was charming during the day, but as the sun dipped below the trees, the house took on an eerie stillness. Mrs. Reynolds handed me a baby monitor and kissed her daughter, Lila, goodnight. Before leaving, she paused at the door. "Oh, one more thing," she said, her tone sharp. "If you hear Lila crying on the monitor, don't go into her room. Just let her cry it out." I laughed nervously, but her expression stayed grim. "Promise me," she said. I nodded, and they left. At first, the night was quiet. I watched TV, snacked, and occasionally glanced at the baby monitor. Lila was sound asleep in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Around 11 p.m., the first cry came. It was soft at first, almost like a whimper. I stared at the monitor, remembering Mrs. Reynolds' warning. "Let her cry it out," I whispered to myself. But the cries grew louder, more desperate. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the monitor and crept up the stairs, the cries growing sharper with every step. When I reached the door to Lila's room, I froze. The cries stopped. The room was silent, except for the faint sound of the mobile spinning above the crib. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, I opened the door. Lila wasn't in her crib. The sheets were tangled, as if she'd been pulled out in a hurry. Panic surged through me. I turned, ready to search the house, when I heard a soft giggle. It came from the closet. "Lila?" I whispered, stepping toward it. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. When I opened the door, there she was, sitting on the floor, her back to me. "Lila, you scared me," I sighed, stepping closer. But as I reached out to pick her up, she turned her head. Her face wasn't Lila's. Her eyes were too wide, black as tar, and her smile stretched impossibly far, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You shouldn't have looked," she hissed, her voice distorted. I screamed and stumbled back, slamming the door shut. Behind it, I could hear scratching and faint laughter. I ran downstairs, grabbed my phone, and called the Reynolds. Mrs. Reynolds answered on the second ring. "I told you not to go in there," she said, her voice trembling. I saw something," I cried. Her response chilled me to the core. "That's not Lila. Lila's been gone for years." I left the house that night and never went back. I don't know what's in that room, but if you ever babysit for the Reynolds, heed my warning. Don't look at the baby.